Hi guys, this is Lalana. Thanks for tuning into the Sovereign Path. So today I'm going to do a video. I've got my laptop here, so if you guys keep seeing me look down, that's what I'm doing. I'm going to do a video for you guys. I have had a lot of people ask me this, and this is something that I've been meaning to do for a while and I just haven't gotten to yet. So are you experiencing a twin flame path? Are you going through a spiritual awakening? I did a video on twin flames versus limerence, so you guys can check that out if you would like. I've had a lot of questions from people saying, just tell me that I'm experiencing limerence so I can let this thing go. Can you explain to me what a spiritual awakening is? Because I simply don't know. Can you tell me if I am experiencing an actual twin flame dynamic? Because I don't know. So this video is in response to you guys and those questions. I have several things written down because there are a lot of them and I don't want to skip things. So the first thing I'm going to say is that the twin flame path, which I say all the time in all of my videos, is the activation of your spiritual awakening. Meeting a true twin flame is the activation of your spiritual awakening, of your ascension process. And this is activated and triggered by you as the higher self, right? Through the twin flame. So the twin flame is the vehicle for the catalyst of your spiritual awakening. So I've addressed this in a couple of videos when people have said, oh, well, it's my karmic that activated my spiritual awakening, or oh, it's my soulmate that activated my spiritual awakening, and things like that. So I have a video on that as well. Can someone other than the twin flame trigger your spiritual awakening? You guys can watch that if you would like. But the thing is that no one external to you triggers your spiritual awakening. The only thing that activates a spiritual awakening in this lifetime is the higher self, that is you. And the twin flame, who is you, is the catalyst that is acting, through the higher self to facilitate this awakening for you. So I've had people say, well, if you say that no one external to me can trigger my spiritual awakening, then how can my twin flame have triggered my spiritual awakening? Because although they look external to you, this is one soul essence experiencing itself into incarnations, right? So just to make that clear. So I'm just going to go through the list of these and I'll hit on them, here and there as I see. But a spiritual awakening is, it's not going to be anything that you have ever experienced before. It is basically a complete shift in the reality as you know it, in the reality as you have been experiencing it up into the point of meeting this person. So let me caveat this for a second, because there are a lot of people that can experience a spiritual awakening before they meet their twin. And people who think like they've been on a spiritual path, they've been going through an awakening, they've been doing all of these things, and then suddenly they meet the twin and they're like, whoa, I thought I was going through a spiritual awakening. I thought that I had experienced all of these things until I met the twin, and then their Kundalini activates. And then they have the awareness of that, okay, I was experiencing some type of a spiritual awakening, but I hadn't experienced the Kundalini activation, which is very, very intense. It's a very intense energetic activation that basically shoots energy from the root chakra straight up all of your chakras, up your spine, out your crown chakra. And it is an energy that you cannot control, that the ego didn't create, that the mind didn't create. You're not quite sure where this energy came from, how long it's going to last, all of these sort of things. And the Kundalini, the purpose of the Kundalini rising is basically to shed all the layers and beliefs and programs and patterns and all of these things that I'm always talking about, it's to shed them, right? It's to bring these things up to the surface so that you can see them and so that you can release them. This is an organic process deemed by the higher self. Again, it's not something that that you can create, just like the awakening process, right? Like, you know, we don't go looking for awakening. We don't go looking for ascension. Some people do, and they end up not finding it. So this is a path that finds you, right? And it's one of those things that if you feel like you want to be on this path and you feel like you're looking for this path, you know, it's that at that point that you know that you're probably not on it, because that's not how this works. It literally is orchestrated, led, deemed, and you already decided to do this before you incarnated here as your higher self. You already decided to incarnate with the twin, meet the twin, go through the spiritual awakening and all of those sort of things. So I guess the other thing I want to hit on before I get into my list is, you know, the twin flame phenomena, the twin flame label has become pretty stereotypical, pretty mainstream these days. And due to that, and due to sort of seeing it, you know, in just like mainstream shows and social media and stuff like that, it's gotten pretty watered down. The truth of what this path is has gotten very watered down, and the twin flame label has become synonymous with the soulmate label in a lot of ways. So a soulmate and a twin flame are markedly different. I don't know if I've done a video on that, but I will if you guys would like me to. These are markedly different experiences, markedly different paths, just like your twin flame and your karmic relationships are markedly different, right? So due to the fact that this label, and it is a label, and I wish that we could sort of drop the label as well as other labels, but this is kind of how we communicate in this, you know, physical reality. Due to the label being so mainstream now and therefore so watered down, it can be, I can understand, difficult to sort of differentiate potentially what you're experiencing and what you're not experiencing when it comes to the twin flame dynamic. So this is a spiritual awakening. It's not a soulmate relationship. It's not a karmic relationship. It doesn't play out like those relationships. It doesn't breathe and walk and talk like those relationships. The twin flame dynamic is 5D union. It is coming from higher consciousness, and the purpose of this is to shift you the purpose is to shift you into the awareness that you are higher consciousness, that you have always been that. I've done tons of videos on that as well. So I'm just going to go through several of these that I have written down just so that you guys can get some sort of an idea of how the awakening process shows up if you are a twin flame. So also, you know, the awakening can come through the twin flame vehicle as an activation, but you can also awaken and not be a twin flame. So just because you're awakening doesn't mean that you're a twin flame, and just because you're a twin flame doesn't mean that you have not potentially awakened by other means prior to meeting the twin flame and then gone through the Kundalini activation after you met the twin flame. So here's some of the things that you will be experiencing if you are experiencing this path. Energy influxes within your chakras and around you. So you will be feeling just energy flooding through your body in ways that you have not experienced before, in ways that you cannot control. You know that the mind is not controlling. You know that the ego is not creating this. These are going to be coming from the ascension process. They're coming from the awakening process. These are shifts within your literal energetic structure. You are shifting from a carbon-based system to a crystalline-based system as you're going through a spiritual awakening. So you will feel a lot of energy around you as you're going through this process. There will be a deep knowing that your whole reality is shifting, but you as the ego are not controlling that shift. So this is like the Tower card in the tarot deck, right? This is why I say things like, if you're going through this path, you will suddenly find that your reality is starting to look very different from the way your reality looked before you met this person. things will start to move around in your life. Friends will start to fall away. Jobs will start to fall away. Your life will be rerouted. Things will start to be restructured. And these will not necessarily be things that your ego or your mind has made decisive choices about. These will be things that just start happening in order to align your life to go in a different direction. These will be deemed and orchestrated by the higher self. So you will notice that things are just starting to move around and shift in your world, and you'll not really know why, and you'll know that you're not the one really controlling that. There will be a deep knowing that this other person, the twin, is your reflection, is your soul, is your same self. You will actually be able to feel this. You'll be able to see it in their eyes. You'll be able to hear it in the resonance of their voice, and you will be able to feel it energetically. You will have a very deep knowing within you that this person is unlike any person that you have ever met, and there will be that reflection on some level that this is my higher self looking back at me through this person, right? This is source, this is God looking back at me through this person. So this will be a knowing. It'll be something that just comes through you, but the mind and the ego will not be able to make sense of that, right? So that's the next one. So you will have, most people have psychic abilities that come online, clairvoyances, clairaudience, clairsentience, claircognizance, all of these sort of things where you're just suddenly able to, you know, see energy, see auras, feel energy, feel auras. You'll be able to communicate in ways with your higher self, with your higher guides, with the higher masculine. You will simply feel energy around you all the time and influxing through you. It's kind of like you stepped into another world when you really go through this path. It's like you're going through some other world that you can't explain, and it's completely experiential, and that unless someone else around you is experiencing this as well, they think that they have no idea what you're going through, which potentially can make you feel like, am I going crazy here? You know, what is this? I don't know what this is. I don't know how to control it. This keeps coming from, you know, out of nowhere. I don't know what this is. Nowadays, you know, spiritual awakening is much more mainstream. So we can have the awareness of, okay, wait, maybe this is what I'm experiencing. But not all people have the wherewithal to think that maybe they're experiencing a spiritual awakening. So hearing, seeing, and feeling energy for a lot of people. So as I'm going through this, it needs to be the majority of these things, not like 2 or 3. It needs to be like the majority of these things are what that you are experienced or have experienced after meeting this person, right? Very soon after meeting this person. So intense and unexplainable experiences during meditation. This is a very common one, where suddenly you're able to tap into your higher awareness, your higher knowing. You know, you're starting to get messages and things through meditation, again, that you're not creating. You're not dreaming this. You're not imagining this. This is just literal communication. And you will be able to feel the difference of whether or not you're just imagining this or dreaming this or all of these sort of things. Because when these things start to happen, it'll be so early in the process of meeting the twin that at that point you won't have the wherewithal to be like, oh, let me imagine being with them, or let me dream up how amazing this would be, and all of these sort of things. This is going to be a situation where the awakening is taking you so much by surprise that all of this stuff is happening basically at once. It's like a flood of energy is all around you, coming up through you. You're hearing things, you're seeing things, which is why a lot of people start to think that, you know, what's actually going on here, I really don't know. Seeing auras, I already said that. Most people will start to be able to basically see through the 3D matrix like glass. So you will start to see that what the matrix is and the way that things are structured are illusory, that it's dreamlike, that this isn't actually how things operate, right? That potentially a lot of people will feel like, I've experienced this before, and I know that this isn't how me as my I am presence, as my higher consciousness, as my higher self operates. We don't have these types of constructs. So another way of saying this is that a lot of people will have a higher awareness that you come from oneness, that you come from unity, and having all of this separation constructs and all of these sort of limitations will feel very non-resonant for you. It will start to feel like this just isn't what I am, and I don't feel aligned with, you know, the experiences potentially that you had or the experiences that you're having. You will start to lose resonance with the separation consciousness construct. And so therefore you will start seeing through all of those things, like I say, like they're illusions. You'll start to see the illusion of this. So the Kundalini rising is huge. Kundalini generally happens close to after you have met the twin physically. And so this is a very, very intense process. It is not something that anyone is going to mistake for anything else. As I said at the beginning of the video, the Kundalini rising is extremely intense energy that literally floods your entire body. And it's so intense that it will like pin you to your chair. It will move you around. It's a very, very intense energetic experience. And if you've experienced it, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't experienced that, then you haven't experienced a Kundalini awakening. For some people, this can happen in waves, you know, over the course of a few weeks. For some people, this lasts for a few days and it's extremely intense. And it can feel kind of scary because the Kundalini will sort of come completely out of nowhere. And as I said, you can't control it. You didn't bring it on. You can't stop it. You know, you don't really know what's happening, but suddenly it's like something has taken you over and you're not quite sure what it is. It's a very, very intense energy that is flooding all the programs and belief systems and everything up to the surface to be cleared and transmuted. So for some people, there'll be like a really deep calling to ground, right? To ground in nature, to walk barefoot. For some people, there will be just an automatic calling just to start meditating. Some people just feel very drawn to meditate and they don't know why. Some people will feel very drawn to nature and they feel like it's the only place that they can really like connect or feel like they make sense. It's the only place that they feel like they can really ground their energy. And a lot of times this can potentially be people who had not done this previously. They will feel drawn to nature and they'll feel drawn to meditation. All your past conditionings, traumas, inner child woundings start showing up and start being intensely reflected back to you by the twin. So this one is a given. It's the one that, you know, I talk about all the time. The triggers are the gold mines. So all of your stuff, right? All of it is going to be coming up, and it's going to be coming up like pretty much just like in your face and relentlessly all the time. And as I've said in a lot of my videos, this is not karmic, this is not toxic, and this is not abusive. None of those things have anything to do with the twin flame path. So if you're experiencing those, you're not experiencing a twin flame dynamic. When I say that everything is coming up for you, it's so that you shift into a higher timeline, so that you shift into freedom, so that you shift into inner union, into the love that you are, into the remembrance that I am my I am presence, that I am higher consciousness, that I am love. And so part of this process is having that reflection of all the things that you are not, all the things that you can no longer carry on your ascension path. And so due to this, you will have those reflections. They will be strong from the twin, strongest from the twin than from anyone else. But you will also have those reflections from family members, from friends, from jobs, from just situations of being out and about in the world. There will be showing you these parts of you that, you know, basically are asking to be released, transmuted, seen, heard, loved, embraced, all of that stuff that I'm always talking about. So there will be a deep feeling that you have to come into self-love. So this one is really, really big. They're all big, but I really want to drive this one home because the whole thing about the twin flame is that this is about bringing you into self-love. It is about bringing you back into the remembrance that you are union, that you are oneness, that you are love, that you are a spark of source, that you are a creator being. So this is why I'm really pushing, and I always push, this is not a toxic dynamic. This is not an abusive dynamic. That is absolutely not what this is. And a lot of people mistake having their stuff come up as being hurtful or mean or whatever. And so we really need to like be nuanced in regard to I'm seeing what's coming up for me based on past belief systems, past conditioning, subconscious conditioning, woundings, inner child stuff. I'm seeing this thing come up, and I'm seeing the reflection of it coming up through this person or this person or this person, not because these people are doing X, Y, and Z, but because I need to see what I am holding within me that is no longer serving my highest alignment and my highest timeline, right? So again, this is not going to be toxic, and it's not going to be abusive. So just keep that in mind, you guys. So yeah, you're going to have like a deep calling that ascension and the awakening path suddenly becomes your whole world. It's like that becomes your purpose. It becomes your calling. It becomes your drive. It's just like you want to do this work, right? I don't like to call it work, but you want to dive into your inner world. You want to see what's going on. You want to understand what this is. You want to like heal, right? It becomes like your whole life is that you want to figure this out. You want to come into love. You want to like have that best life. And so that's a huge one, is that the twin flame path, it brings you into your highest self, right? It brings you into your sovereignty. It brings you into your love, and it releases the things that have been masking what you truly are, right? So, you know, if you're on this path and you feel like you're just like going round and round and round, and you're just really obsessed with this person, but you haven't seen any real like growth within you, if you haven't really felt like I'm starting to love myself more, I'm starting to see my shadow, you know, I'm starting to see this wound and I'm releasing this, you know, I'm starting to see the program and I'm releasing this, actively releasing this, and I'm starting to just like come into more and more love bit by bit. I'm starting to like love myself and see myself as sovereign and being a self-loving place within me. If you're not noticing that this is going on, then you're not experiencing a twin flame path, right? Because that is the purpose of this. It is to bring you into this really, you know, beautiful, amazing energy that you are, right? Like I keep saying, this isn't like bringing you into like some new thing or some new place or whatever. It's basically shedding away what you're not, so that it is revealed what you are, what you've always been, which is higher consciousness, with it, which is union, which is love, which is a sovereign being, all of these sort of things. So these layers and things that are being shed off, they're not being shed off like to cause you pain. They're being shed off to actually bring you back into love, right? So where am I? Yeah, a deep feeling that ascension is your purpose. Feeling the twin with you when they are nowhere physically around. So this is another big one. You will palpably be able to feel energy if you are experiencing this path. You will palpably be able to experience energy in ways that you have never experienced energy before. This will be the higher self, this will be the higher masculine, this will be the higher feminine, all of which are you. You will start to be able to feel the masculine around you in meditation, with you. Some people communicate, as I said, with the higher masculine, with the higher self, and all of these sort of things. But there will just be this energy that you feel. We can call it the third energy. Some people call it the third energy. You will feel that. And it will be something that you have never felt before, that you know you didn't create, and that your mind can't explain. Let's see. Feeling the twin, not knowing why or how, and wondering if this is my energy that I'm feeling or if it's a twin, it's energy that I'm feeling. So this one is common as well, of having that awareness that the physical twin, even though they're not anywhere around you, is potentially thinking about you, or you're picking up on their thoughts in some way. This is because you share a consciousness. You're going to be able to feel them. They're going to be able to feel you. You as the divine feminine has a more heightened sense and a heightened awareness of what that potentially is, but you will be able to feel them. Again, this isn't going to be coming from the mind. And it's important that I say that everything that I'm reading off here, none of this is going to be coming from the mind, from the imagination, or from any sort of like trying to dream it up. These things will be coming from, they will be coming from within you, and you will simply feel it within you and around you, right? This is going to be something that your mind and your ego did not create, could not create, and cannot control. You can't just turn this off. So if you're experiencing a true twin flame dynamic, you'll know exactly what I'm saying. You can't turn it off, right? If the mind was controlling it or the ego was controlling it, then you would be able to stop imagining, stop dreaming, stop feeling these things, whatever it was, move on, blah, blah, blah. That just does not happen when you're experiencing this dynamic. It is out of your hands. This is completely led by the higher self that is you. And that is one thing that you will feel very, very strongly, is that suddenly the you that you think that you are, the you that you has been experiencing this lifetime, has suddenly left the building. And the higher self that is you is suddenly driving the car, right? This is why ego death feels so damn uncomfortable. Because as this transition is happening and the higher self is stepping into, we are ascending now, we are awakening now, this is what we're doing. The ego is doing everything it can to maintain control of what it thinks it has always been in control of. So it's the ego death, which is the dark night of the soul. Those are synonymous for those of you who have asked me. It's the ego death that feels so painful. It's not something that is actually happening to you that feels painful, right? We go through the ego death, the dark night of the soul, and it feels destructive, right? It feels destructive, it feels painful, it feels hard, all of those sort of things. But you have to have the awareness of those are the programs that are deleting. It's the programs and the identifications and the definitions and the labels and the explanations and the separation and all of these things that are releasing, that we have been identifying ourselves as, that ego has been identifying itself as. And so without that, right, without all of those constructs, we're suddenly put in a place that's saying, if I'm not that, then what am I, right? That's what makes this feel scary. If I'm not all these things, then what am I now? And now you're telling me I'm supposed to like trust my higher self? I don't even remember who that is. And I'm feeling all this energy around me, and I'm feeling the masculine and this third energy, and all of this stuff's coming up, and meditation is weird and all this sort of stuff. And in those moments, the ego is what feels comfortable, right? The ego is what feels damn comfortable. The programs feel comfortable, the societal norms, all the things that we have come to be used to are what feels normal. And so suddenly we're going through a process where we're saying, no, you gotta let that shit go. And you're like, no, I don't know what all this other is. I don't know what all this other stuff is. And then in addition to that, you have, you know, the divine masculine that's coming in and out or doing however that works. And so you're just like flooded, right? You're flooded with all of these things. That's a twin flame dynamic, guys, by the way. If you're not experiencing all that, you're not experiencing this path. So have the wherewithal within those moments that this is why we attach to the ego, right? It's why we attach when we're going through an awakening process to the ego conditioning and to the emotional pain body. It's because that's what we're comfortable with. That's what we know. That's why it's hard to let it go, because we're afraid of what's on the other side of the awakening. We don't remember, right? You get to the point where it's just like, oh yeah, how did it take me so long to, get here? This was always here. This was always me. And it's a wonderful thing when you move into that energy of inner union. But before that, have that awareness. It's not that you are falling apart if you are experiencing this. It's that the conditionings and the programs are telling you that you are. They're telling you that you are because that's all you've ever experienced in this reality, right? So just have that awareness. We lean into ego and into mind and into, logicality and all of these things because that makes sense to the ego. And we have been believing that we are the ego for so long that we need things to make sense. And so I understand when I say things like it's hard to explain things logically around when we're talking about true spiritual awakening and ascension because it's experiential, right? And people will say, well, if you can't explain it logically, then that doesn't make any sense. Well, if you experience, then you know that this is experiential and that it doesn't have anything to do with logic or with the mind. And it's not being led by the mind or the ego, which depends on logic and which depends on things that make sense. This has to do with the higher self, right? This has to do with love, with unity, with unconditionality. So just have that awareness. There is that transition phase of feeling like, I feel out of control. What am I doing? In those moments that the mind keeps trying to grip back on and ask 1,000 questions and try to figure this out. This is why surrender is so important on this path. The mind will never figure this out. And this is why people fight this path so hard, tooth and nail, because they want to understand it intrinsically to the point that it actually acts as a block. Because the mind will only take you so far on this path. And at some point, you have to surrender to the free fall, to the trust fall of the higher self that is you. And when you do that, that's when everything starts to fall into place and you come into inner union and remember what you are. So let me see, what else do I have on here? The 3D life starts to rearrange itself. I said that earlier. Friends start to fall out of resonance. Family will start to fall out of resonance. This one can feel really uncomfortable for most people. And so just have the awareness that it's just that if you're shifting out of all of these programs and other people are still running these programs, you're not going to feel that same resonance that you did before because you're not going to be running the same program. And it's not a hierarchy, like I've been saying in a lot of my videos. This is not a hierarchy. It's not a right or a wrong or anything. It's just evolution, and this is just the way that this thing works, which is why it's important to really come into neutrality so that you're just in the present moment and in reverence and grace of your path and everyone else's path and the way that they are being walked and guided by the higher self. So on that same page, you'll find it hard to relate to people in the same way as you used to, and a lot of people will not understand what you are experiencing. They won't understand the twin flame dynamic. They won't understand ascension or the awakening path, and in some ways that can feel very isolating, which is why we watch videos like this and do coaching and things like that. So we have the awareness that yes, other people are experiencing this the same as you. You are not alone. I've done a lot of videos on this as well. You are not alone, even when it feels like you are alone. You are not isolated. You're always being guided. You're always being protected and loved. But that is part of this path of suddenly feeling out of resonance with the 3D world, with the life that you used to have, with the friends, with the family, and sort of feeling like now I'm out of touch with this as you're shifting out of that separation consciousness, but you haven't anchored unity consciousness yet, and so you're sort of drifting in between places, and this can feel very uncomfortable. It is temporary though, you guys, as I said before. Let me see. So I said this one already. Clairvoyance, clairaudience, claircognizance. Your ego telling you that you must be crazy because all of these weird things are happening, right? This is very common as well. And even like, honestly, even when you're in inner union, your ego sometimes will still like try to like have its little voice and say its stuff and whatever else. That's just part of the path. We're not like, I've said this in a lot of my coaching, we're not like, killing off the ego. We're not like slapping the ego around and all of that kind of stuff and just dismantling it and whatever else. We are dismantling the programs and all of those things that we have been running for a long time. The ego stays around. It doesn't go anywhere. It just kind of up levels as you up level. It's always going to have a voice. It's always going to have things to say. It's just really a matter of how much attention you're giving it and the story and all of those sort of things. And I've talked about that in a lot of other videos. This is a big one. So you feel like you've suddenly become the observer of your life rather than the one living it. So this is similar to the quote, that says, you are of this world, but you are not in it. This happens generally a little bit later on the path, really when you come into presence more and more, and certainly as you anchor into inner union, you will just simply be kind of observing things. You will be the observer. You will sort of start to take on you will start to take on the perspective of the higher self that is you. You will not be able, and this is later in the path, guys, you will not be able to sort of be sucked into drama anymore. You will not be able to be sucked into like the old program of how 3D, relationships work, or how, old family dynamics work and all of those sort of things. That stuff will simply completely fall out of your reality. It will fall out of your resonance altogether once you come into inner union. And for some people that can feel, kind of odd. It's another transition that you kind of have to get used to when you're sort of watching your life. Instead of feeling like you're the one sort of doing things, now this is when you really are, moving from that I am presence all the time rather than moving from ego. Let's see. You're constantly feeling the twin and it's driving you crazy. So I have a lot of coaching clients that I talk to that deal with this and that are going through this, and this is a very normal thing that you will experience in the beginning stages and definitely in the middle stages, and as long until you come into neutrality, you will experience this where you're constantly thinking about them. Now, the obsessive compulsive thoughts in the very beginning, yes, that's a sign too, but if that doesn't dissipate pretty quick and the awakening begins very quickly after that, then consider that you're probably not experiencing a twin flame dynamic. As I said before, if the obsessive thing keeps going and going and going, but you're not experiencing these things, you're not coming into self-love, you're not feeling this draw or this pull to start doing, inner work and shadow work and really moving along your ascension path and really starting to this really does just become your whole world. If that's not happening and the obsessive thing continues and you're just always thinking about this person, that's not a twin flame dynamic, right? That potentially is limerence on some level or something similar to that. So when I say that you're constantly thinking about them and it's driving you crazy, it's like, as I said in the earlier ones, it's like you can just feel them all the time, all the time, all the time. And this can be something that's really annoying for a lot of divine feminines, where they wake up in the morning and suddenly there they are again. It's like during the day and there they are again. They'll have a few moments of not feeling the twin, and that'll feel nice. It'll sort of feel peaceful and neutral for a little while. And then the next thing they know, they're feeling their energy again. That is very, very common on this path, that you are just feeling them all the time. So have the awareness that there is no them. This is one energy that you're feeling. You're feeling your energy, and you're feeling your energy shifting into a higher vibration and a higher frequency. You just haven't been used to how that feels. And so your energy integration, all of this stuff is starting to come back online, and it can feel, the energy on this path is undeniable and inescapable. And it's one of the ways that you will know that you are experiencing. The energy is relentless. You will feel it all the time, right? You will start to integrate that, but you will feel their energy, your energy, the higher self energy, the Kundalini energy, the influx of stuff coming up, all of your chakras, your heart chakra, you'll feel blocks in certain places. The energetic, situation, for lack of a better way, saying that on this path is intense. It's intense, and it's not something that can be mistaken for something else. That is one of the marketed signs that you are experiencing this path. The psychic abilities, the clairvoyances is very common for most people on this path. Not everyone experiences that, but it's very common that people do. Like I say, communication with your higher guides is also very, very common on this path. And I'm not talking about dreaming that up or imagining that you're communicating with someone. I'm talking about the actual awareness that I am not creating this, and suddenly I'm having telepathy and higher communication with my higher self. So the last one I have on here is, you want the whole thing to stop, and it won't. This is one of the giant ones, is that, most twin flames will tell you that if they knew that this is what this path was, they probably wouldn't have chosen it, because it is so intense. And you get to there will be many times on this path that you will just feel like, I want to get off this ride. I want this to stop. I'm sick of feeling all this energy. I'm sick of, transmuting all this stuff and doing all of these things and feeling like this is my life now. This is so relentless now. Where did my life go? That sort of thing. I just want to go back into, the way things used to be. That's very common for a lot of feminines to feel that in the beginning and middle stages of this path. But it doesn't. Once you are on an awakening path, once you're on an ascension trajectory, that's it. This isn't an ego choice. This isn't a mind's choice. As I said, this is deemed, orchestrated, led, and guided by you as the higher self. And this is something that you decided to do before you incarnated into this lifetime to have this experience. And so it's not something that you can get off, right? It's not something that the mind can just decide that I don't want to do this anymore. And that is also one of the marketed things to know, that this is what you're experiencing, is that you will be being pushed and guided constantly by the higher self to ascend. That's just it. It's just what's happening. And the ascension part of this will become bigger than just trying to get the twin flame back, right? So that's one of the big things, is and that's why I say this in the beginning, is that this path is leading you back into love. It's leading you back into self-love. It's leading you back into the love for self. It is eradicating anything that is ever told you that you are not love. It's eradicating any program, any wound, any societal norm, any conditioning that has ever convinced you that you are anything but love, that you are anything but a spark of source, that you are anything but all that is. It is eradicating those things. And due to that, it feels really damn uncomfortable, as I said, but it is shifting you into freedom. It is shifting you into the remembrance of what you are. That is full-blown what this is. And so when we talk a lot about, and the main thing at the beginning stages and the mid stages of this path is, when am I going to be back with my divine masculine? How do I get them back? All of that sort of stuff, right? Which is a lot of times why I don't make a ton of videos about the masculine, because the thing is that this is one energy, and that one energy follows itself, and that one energy awakened itself to come out of the illusion and out of the dream that we're meant to chase or strive or try or yearn to get anything outside of us, right? This path is to awaken you to the remembrance that you are it. I've done a ton of videos on this. You are it. You are the one, right? There's nothing that you need to do to earn love, to attract love, to manifest the twin, all of those sort of things. That's all bullshit. It's all programs, it's all belief systems, it's all separation, telling you that you're separate from what you are. This path is shifting you back into that inner love. It's shifting you back into the remembrance that you are inner union. So this is why, you know, we're sort of, most people coming at this path from the opposite end of it, from the back end of it, honestly, of thinking that it's all about the romantic aspect with a twin, right? When it's all about romance, that is actually a soulmate connection. It's not a twin flame dynamic. The romantic aspect of the twin flame dynamic is embroiled within this entire thing. It's going to come in, it's going to come out, it's going to go up, it's going to go down, it's going to do all sort of things to shift you into your love, right? The love that you share, the love that is the one, the love that is the two of you as one. And so have the awareness, as I said, that if you, you know, pretty much, I mean, that's kind of a ridiculous thing to say. If you want to be in romantic union with the twin, most people want to be in romantic union with the twin. But have the awareness that that romantic union that you want to be within the twin will never happen, will never stick, will never be in any harmonious, you know, physical way if you don't find it within yourself first. That's why it's pushing you. That's why you're getting triggered, right? That's why all this stuff is coming up for you. And the awakening is bringing you back into that love. That's like the biggest thing that I can really, you know, try to convey through this video and on my channel, is that, you know, a lot of people feel like the awakening is like, it's such a pain in the ass, and why do I have to go all through this stuff, and why do I have to do all these things? Have in mind that that's the ego wanting to keep you in suffering, and wanting to keep you in chasing, and wanting to keep you in separation. The higher self is wanting to free you, right? The higher self that is you is freeing you. The masculine, the physical aspect of the masculine is also doing that. It might not always look like that. And like I said, this can't be toxic or abusive. If it is, it's not a twin flame dynamic. So it's pushing you to come back into that remembrance that I am love. Until you come back into that remembrance and embody that, as I said, the thing with your external reality will always be fleeting and up and down and back and forth, because you're not back in oneness with you. So if you're not back in oneness within, which is the divine masculine and divine feminine balance within, the hieros gamos that I always talk about, then how in the world are you going to have that in your external reality? It's not going to reflect back to you if it's not within you. As within, so without. This is why I'm always putting the ascension path in the forefront of this entire dynamic, because it has to come first. If it doesn't come first, it continues the cycle of separation. It continues the cycle of on and off, right? So that's another thing to have the awareness of, is if the cycle continues to be on and off and hot and cold and back and forth and up and down, and you're not experiencing the things that I have said, and that's just to name a few. There's way more awakening symptoms than that. This video is already getting too long. I'm sorry, you guys. So yeah, if you're just like going around and around and doing all these things and you're not experiencing awakening, then you're not experiencing a twin flame dynamic. Potentially you could be experiencing a karmic situation, you could be experiencing a soulmate situation, and those all are beautiful and wonderful too. They all have their part to play, right? So have that awareness too. Whatever your experience is being guided by the higher self. There is no better than. There is no right, there is no wrong, there is no, I wish there was this. That's all ego conditioning as well. The higher self is guiding you to the lessons and to the things that, you know, are in your highest timeline. Sometimes that's a soulmate, sometimes that's a karmic, sometimes that's a twin, right? So just know that, you know, you are the I am presence at all times. You are sovereign, as I've said, at all times. You are love at all times. We have just been experiencing separation, and that's all fine and good. You know, it's all fine and good. So hopefully that brings you guys a little bit of clarity. Like I said, I could go on and on. There's way more signs than that, but I mean, I'm almost coming at like 50 minutes here, so I'm gonna have to cut this down, guys. So as always, thank you to all my subscribers. I love you guys. I really appreciate you guys. You know, I'm doing my best to like get through all your questions. You know, I do a lot of coaching as well, so I can't be making videos like every single day. Sorry for that. But, you know, continue to, you know, leave me questions in the comments, and I'm writing them down, and I'm doing my best to get through your list and to answer those as I go along. So sending much love to you guys, and I hope that you have an awesome day.